Hiya. Um, I'm back again for my second post on YouTube about birthing mothers and how we're forgotten about when we receive injuries. The first part of the story I had got up to telling you about basically what happened during my pregnancy and after the delivery. And I'm now going to go to the part where I found out that I'd had a third degree tear and it needed to be repaired. During this time we had been speaking to some people, and some people had said to us, have you thought about pursuing a medical case for them missing things? At the time we hadn't thought about it, and then when we did, somebody else had said to us, look, why don't you check if you have legal cover on your mortgage, which we did have. So we pursued that, and they covered us for a certain amount of money to start the court procedure. They put us in touch with a lawyer who was in Edinburgh, and during a telephone consultation she asked me why I thought I had a claim, and I explained to her about them missing the third degree tear and also the 6 centimetre tear that they'd missed, and also the heart failure. And then she said to me during the call, she asked whether or not I'd had any problems with incontinence, i.e. with my bowel or my bladder. And I said, yeah, actually I have, and I'm waiting to see a colorectal surgeon. So she looked into that a wee bit more, and she said, okay, we need to kind of find out more about that. So over the next few months we were backwards and forwards, get medical records released, different things like that, and I had no idea what the process would be like. People will often say to me now when they hear my story, oh, didn't you sue them? Didn't you try and get, for negligence? Yes, I have, for the last 10 years. We had a court date which was due to be on 14th of February 2016, and 2 weeks before this date my legal team, my lawyers, pulled out. Now, the reason they pulled out, when you do any kind of medical negligence case, there's basically 3 areas which you must satisfy. It's about, is there an injury, and was it caused by somebody not doing what they should have done? Now, the way they look at it is there's a case which was back in 1955, and it's a Hunter v Hanley case, and basically it was a test that they put up to see, they had to kind of have a test, to compare different things with, and they said that medical negligence was something that was done that no other ordinary professional in the same status as the doctor or whatever other professional you're talking about would have done. That might seem quite obvious, it might say, well, obviously doctors don't carry out certain things that cause harm. But what they say in the Hunter v Hanley is that if you have a case and you have a doctor who has done something wrong, if you have one doctor who says, yeah, I would probably have done the same, and you have 1,000 saying, oh no, I wouldn't have done it, the one doctor who's saying, yeah, I would have done the same, is enough to get the case thrown out. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but that's exactly what you're up against. We had went for medical expert reports and things like that, and the NHS as well had went for medical reports. They had sent me all over. They sent me to St Mark's in London, they sent me to Edinburgh to see specialists. I've seen a psychiatrist, I've seen colorectal surgeons, seen a gynaecologist, for both sides, mine and them. Now, in saying this, the NHS has used every single part of my medical notes against me. And I'm going to be really honest here and upfront so that everybody knows. Back in 1995 I had a nervous breakdown, and it was because of an incident that had happened a year previous in my life, and the depression had got really bad and got to a point where I ended up in a psychiatric hospital. Now, the reason I'm telling you that, because I'm not ashamed of it, it happened and that's it. But the NHS and the Central Legal Office, the CLO, who are the main people who represent the NHS, the CLO and the experts used that in saying, well, she had psychological problems before the birth of her son, and they were basically saying that I was crazy, that my mental health was something that had made me say that things were happening when they weren't happening. They were basically saying I was crazy, you know. And they said that. I've got letters in there from medical experts who have said, oh, I'm suffering from this, suffering from that. Now, I have a psychiatrist and have had one for the last 10 years who has seen me all along, and I showed him a copy of the reports that had been sent from these doctors who had met me for a 20-minute session and a one-off, and basically he said, no way, don't agree with them. No, I believe you've got post-traumatic stress, you had postnatal depression, and everything else that goes with having a new baby and finding out that you have a life-changing injury. And that's what they used against me. They used everything that they could. Now, going back to the Hunter v Hanley, the medical experts who we approached, and also the Central Legal Office approaches, are experts who also work for the NHS. They are supposed to be independent experts, but they are still receiving a salary from the NHS. How they can be independent, I don't know. But that's what we were up against. In saying that, we had medical experts who said that the doctor in question was negligent in what he didn't do. Now, in saying that, I've kind of been looking out a few things just now, and everything I'm telling you here is based on the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists Green Top guidelines, the NICE guidelines, and the advice that they kind of give. Now, the Green Top guidelines and treatment for mothers after an assisted delivery. And we're talking about Green Top number 29. So if you go into the computer and type in Green Top guidelines number 29, it will come up saying that it's basically 3rd and 4th degree perineal tears, how they should be dealt with. Now, it tells you that there can be lots of reasons why a mother will get a tear, and why doctors should be aware of this. And all doctors are aware that this should happen. It's in their training. They get additional training for this. It should be on all their record needs. And if you're in any doubt whether or not a doctor has had this training, ask. Find out whether or not they've had it. I didn't have that knowledge then. I didn't have the knowledge to go and say, are you treated in this? Are you trained in this? Are you trained in dealing with women who have perineal tears after a delivery? Because that was never ever something that was given to me. And you as a woman have a right to ask that. You have a right to know if this doctor is qualified in delivering your baby and looking after you and giving you a standard of care that you're entitled to. Why should it be that because we're a birthing mother that we don't deserve the same rights as any other patient in the NHS? Doctors in general have a duty of care. Legal guidelines, Green Top guidelines, NICE guidelines are based on recognised methods and techniques for clinical practice that works. They've realised that, and that's why they've done clinical guidelines for it, and doctors are trained on this. Now, when someone gives a delivery, a woman has a delivery, and a 3rd and 4th degree tear can also happen in non-assisted deliveries, just plain vaginal deliveries, where there has not really been much to worry about, but they can still occur. If a doctor is in any doubt at all that the woman has suffered this, he should then, you get different ratios. You get 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th degree. If he thinks, if there's any doubt that you have a tear, they should put it up one. So if he thinks that you might have a second, he put it up to third to be on the safe side. Because if you're getting treated for a third and they find out it's a second, the treatment will be better. And that's what they're told to do. They're told to make it higher rather than lower. And clinicians need to be aware of these risks. They are aware of them. Now, for a repair, and they call it an oasis, it's an obstetrical anal sphincter injury, and it's called oasis. So if you read about it in any medical notes that you get or your medical records and they put about oasis, that's what they're talking about. They also talk about now whether or not you've had an episiotomy. When I had my son 10 years ago, I was basically told that episiotomies weren't done as standard. Years and years ago, 20 years ago, they were. Everybody got one. But now they try not to do it. Or back 10 years ago, they decided not to do it. I think that might have changed and they might be looking at that again. But that'll be in the Green Top guidelines. But when a woman is suspected of having a tear like this, there needs to be a digital examination, and it needs to be an examination of the rectal passage as well. The digital examination includes the index finger and the thumb, and it's the way the doctor checks it. Now, in doing that, he can feel for different things that's inside the anal passage and the vagina, and it kind of shows because you've got a wall that connects both, and they can check that out. This examination should take place in the immediate period after delivery. It's so important because the scar tissue will then swell and it makes it more difficult. When I had mine, the doctor in question actually did what they call a look and see, which he didn't do the rectal examination, and it states in my medical notes there was no rectal examination carried out. There was a midwife who was looking after me after the initial repair, which they thought, I think, was a second degree tear. But the midwife called the doctor back or paged him to say she was concerned she could feel a stitch in my back passage. After it took him about 2 hours to come back and see me. But when he did come back, he basically did a look and see, which is basically looking, seeing, not touching me, and said, no, she's fine. Now, in page 9 of the Green Top Guidelines, number 29, it states that an anal sphincter injury cannot be identified without performing a rectal examination. If they've not performed it, they can't rule it out. But that's what my doctor did. People were saying that because of this, they recognised that there was an increased risk of the obstetrical anal sphincter injuries between April 2000 and 31st of March 2010, and the NHS in England had 441 claims arising from obstetric perineal trauma. So that was women who had suffered tears and in the aftermath had found out that they were incontinent in various ways. So 441 people had claimed. That's the only ones we know about. We know and people watching this know that there must be hundreds more women out there who don't go ahead because it's such an embarrassing and it's soul destroying, and it takes away your confidence and your ability and your self-worth. And if you have doctors telling you you are making it up, can't be as bad as you're saying, it never happened, then that certainly affects you. And that's what happened to me, and I'm not ashamed to say it. And medical reports from doctors who I have seen are available for anybody who wishes to see them. As I said, doctors that seen me for maybe 20 minutes if they were lucky. Thing about it is as well, when the NHS get experts to do reports, they can decide whether or not they want to put the report in or not. If the report favours them, they can lodge it in the court. If it doesn't, they won't. I seen a psychiatrist for the NHS, a professor in Edinburgh. He doesn't work for the NHS anymore, he's down in England. He doesn't work in Scotland anymore, he's in England. he was a psychiatrist who said he was in no doubt that I was suffering from everything as far as my mental state was in relation to the injury. He knew about the past, he knew about me being in hospital in 1995 and suffering from depression and all of that. He knew about that. I seen him twice. First time I seen him, he did the report and sent it to the NHS. They then asked me to be re-seen by him maybe 2 years later. And he said to me as I walked into the office, I am very, very clear to you that I have no doubt that your mental state just now is because of the injury. And that report was never lodged in the court. They didn't lodge that because it supported part of the case, which is the causation. The causation talks about how you're affected from a certain day and for the rest of your life, basically. And that's the big bit for people. Because for me, I lost my job. I couldn't go back to work. And I haven't been able to work because of the incontinence. Because I don't have any control. So I haven't been able to go back. I lost the first year of my son's life. I mean, I was in an awful state, ending up when he was, I don't know, a year and a half old, ended up in psychiatric hospital again for another 6 weeks. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Anybody who's got anything to say about it, then so be it. But that's how it was for me. Now, we were talking earlier on about the English having, in between 2001 and 2010, 441. That was the fourth highest number of claims in obstetrics. And 85% of these claims were related to misdiagnosis of perineal trauma. And that's page 14 of the top, the Green Top Guidelines. You can have a look and see. Now, the Hunter v Hanley test, as I was saying earlier, it came about in 1955, and it was basically say, is it an unusual practice that no other doctor would do? And if you just got one doctor saying, yeah, I would do that as well, then the case can be thrown out. The doctors who are saying this, or the experts who had been asked this, work for the NHS. How many of you that work for somebody is going to throw your colleague under the bus and saying, actually, but that's what it comes. You could have 1,000 saying he was wrong, one saying I would have done it, and they'll go with the one. So that's what we're up against. It's got to be that no other professional would adopt, and and for any obstetrics or gynecology doctors just now to say that they wouldn't do an anal rectum examination is not following guidelines and protocols. If they decide to do that, then they should suffer the consequences. I mean, why are they any different from any other of us that do a normal job? I mean, put it into context. If it was a bus driver, bus drivers know that they need to protect their passengers when they're on their bus. If a bus driver chooses to go down a one-way street the wrong way and crashes and kills his passengers, he's at fault because he decided to go down that one-way street. If a doctor performs an assisted delivery or a delivery that may cause an injury such as a 3rd or 4th degree tear and decides not to examine, then that's his responsibility. He must be held accountable for that, and he must give an explanation as to why he didn't follow it. And that's what I never got. I was hoping for that explanation in the court, and we never got to court. I have tried to raise a complaint with the hospital because I was told at the time I couldn't do both at the same time, which was a lie. I found out since then I could have done. Hospital are now saying that I am time barred and I can't raise it. So that's where we're at just now. There was a change in the law back in 2015, and it was called the Montgomery ruling. Montgomery versus South Lanarkshire Council, or Health Board. And what it was a woman who'd fought for 15 years. And what she fought for was that she believed that she hadn't been given the proper information to consent to the treatment that she was getting. And she fought for 15 years to get this. It eventually went to the Supreme Court and they upheld her complaint to change it. So this is now something that is looked at to see whether or not you have been given the correct information, so you can make an informed choice whether or not you want to go through a certain procedure. Even if there's only 1% chance that this could happen, they need to tell you about it. It's legally, they're legally obliged to do it. If they don't tell you, then they don't have proper consent. Folks, my video is going to run out, so I'm going to stop it there just now. Please feel free to share, tell people about it, keep it going, and I will certainly update you again in the next few days over the next thing. Any questions, just put it in, okay? Thank you. Bye.